Welcome to the Refractor Rants podcast, a sports card podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tommy, also known as TV Sports Cards, and I'm here with card dealer globetrotter Max, also known as Cards Max. Max, welcome to the Refractor Rants podcast. How are you doing?
I'm locked in and dialed in, Tommy, for our first ever episode of Refractor Rants, and we have some info to share.
Yeah, I mean, we kept it a secret for a while, but we teased it out at the last Young Old Heads. We have a new name, a little more card forward. We're gonna lean as far into the sports card world as we possibly can. The goal with me and Max is that we want to be the sports card podcast that everyone listens to. We want to bring new people into the hobby. We want to help 10x the hobby, but we also want to help 10x your enjoyment of the hobby that you currently have if you're already into sports cards. So we're excited about the name. I mean, we love alliteration. You got to love alliteration. You got to love Charles for redoing our logo for us and revamping the whole brand. Max, are you excited for the Refractor Rants era? I know I am.
I am. And really, if this podcast all originated out of me and Tommy tweeting each other online, progressing into FaceTime meeting each other very often, talking about cards a lot, and then ultimately it culminating into the conversation that every person, every male in their young 20s should be having with someone at some point. We should totally start a podcast, man. We'd be even bigger than Joe Rogan. And I said, hey, if we can, if you can carry the production weight, because I do not know how to use this stuff in the most part, then I will carry my part and then some. And then a more formal relationship was born. The name Young Old Heads was always a little bit centered on me and Tommy being younger collectors and enjoyers of sports and trading cards, but with at least the knowledge base of an older head or someone who's been in it for a longer period of time. And ultimately the name shift, first of all, Young Old Heads was always kind of a placeholder name to begin with, but I believe the transition to Refractor Rants will take the focus less on Tommy and me specifically, at least from a name standpoint, and more into a permanent sports card space.
I love it. I think that's a great summary of kind of the reasoning behind the change. Maybe we might even have some guests that are older than 30 years old on the podcast now. Who knows? Kind of opens up a whole new world for us. But yeah, we want to be the best sports card podcast in the game. I think this name will help us get there. If we aren't already there, we like to think highly of ourselves, obviously. But yeah, Max, let's dive into the sports card conversations if you're down for it.
Yes, let's dive in.
Well, it's been a few weeks, Max, since we've talked formally and recorded it. So, what have you been up to, man? I know you've been kind of globetrotting around. Just teased it at the beginning, but where have you been at?
I do like the name globetrotting around. I want to say 2 weeks ago, I was at the Burbank Card Show. This week, I was at my local Tampa Bay card show. I was set up with Zeke's Burner on Twitter and bumped into our good friend, the Wax Museum podcast, and we chatted for a short bit.
Damn, I'm so jealous you got to meet Kyle. I've been wanting to eventually talk to him, actually. I mean, we chat with each other sometimes online. What did you guys talk about?
We talked about a mix of both podcasting and life in general and the sports card climate in the area, as well as the types of wacky stuff I had in my case. I was splitting a showcase with a friend, of which I do need to start buying my own showcases because I do want to make a better effort into setting up locally. But I digress. I had my Ty Cobb Sovereign PSA 3 completely hidden under other cards, even though that wasn't my intention. And that's part of the dilemma that you have when you have limited showcase space. Even if in my own showcases, I'm piling cards on top of each other. And I always like to have a large bevy and variety of cards that I can really appeal to all audiences with. And also I like them myself.
I love the art of showcase designing and like placing your cards. That was always something. That's a great conversation starter with a dealer if you're just like looking at their case. Like, Dang, you really thought this out. I really respect it. That was always one of my go-to lines going to shows. I will be going back to shows, Max, too. I know you're going to dog me on this, but
Yeah, I
somehow
am.
the
I think
Chicago.
jumping on, I'm going to cut you off a little bit because I do think you bring up a really good point that the curating of a showcase is usually not necessarily intentional in trying to curate towards an audience, but is very intentional in what a dealer's own interests is. There's nothing a little bit more tone deaf than someone. Again, I will look at everything, but if you're showing me 1970s in person autographs and you're showing it to me where I have a showcase of probably 5 vintage cards, all of which are superstars, I don't really want. There's nothing in my showcase to suggest that I need a Greg Nettles IP auto and an SGC Authentic slab. That's not to say that there aren't other people in the room that need that, but again, even if I'm trying to sell to other dealers, I not only get a sense of who they are and what they need and how they work, but also there's nothing more indicative of what they buy than what's already in their showcase.
Dude, absolute shade thrown at Greg Nettles, man. Just absolutely catching a stray for no reason in this podcast right now.
Yeah, dude did not like when I said that the last comp on his Johnny Bench IP auto was $22. And he said, does that comp shit work for you? And I wasn't witty enough to respond in the time, but I probably should have responded, I'm confused. Are you saying that sale didn't happen?
Max versus the IP vintage crowd, I guess, is a new battle for the Refractor Rants era. I'm kind of hyped about it.
Love speech.
So, what else went down though? You set up in Tampa. You had some fun. You talked to Kyle. What went down in Burbank though? You flew literally all the way across the country for a card show, Max.
I flew literally halfway across the country, not even to do that many crazy deals, at least by my standard. I had maybe one small lot of about like 7 cards for $2,000. Coolest card, but not necessarily the largest card of that lot, was the Mark Jackson 1990s hoops. I bought in a PSA 10, which of course has the Melendez brothers pictured in the back. And if you're gonna pick on me for saying 1990s hoops, fuck you. I don't know what year it is, but it is the Melendez brothers Mark Jackson card that I have in a PSA 10. So that was probably the most interesting pickup. I'd say overall it was successful in all ways other than buying and selling cards. I try not to live in a self-fulfilling prophecy, but everything I heard was that Thursday was hectic and every football, basketball card under a certain dollar range was sniped and poached up. And it was a race to see who can get those cards. And even I've always been able to groove and jive in more obscure baseball. So I was able to take that in on Friday and the other days because it wasn't there Thursday. I had some success with Beckett RCR and in PSA's, wasn't on site, but I think it was PSA's courier grading, and that if you were able to get the cards on Thursday, which I had a friend drop off for me, then you were able to get the PSA results later in the weekend. And I had success with that I can get into more detail with. And yeah, so grading cards, seeing friends, having fun, successful in all ways, but really buying and selling. But that's okay. Cards are cards.
Well, that makes sense. You've been to a few Burbank shows, right, Max, so far?
This was my third.
What can you give me a little evolution of the show? Kind of how does it compare to the first two? Before I ask you to dive into your Beckett RCRs, of course.
Yeah, I'd say maybe this is more due to the climate, but I would say this might have been the weakest of the 3 Burbank shows. Again, if anything, I'm not dogging the show itself. If anything, I'm dogging maybe the climate and my own experience in knowing more and more of these dealers, and then it's just partly people that just fly out to the same show. It's always refreshing seeing dealers that are more West Coast based or West Coast centric because I usually am not exposed to that. But the shows was well run. My first show was a year ago. Yeah, I want to say about a year ago, or 53 weeks ago, where it was in the same Ontario Convention Center. Then in August, it went in the Anaheim Convention Center, which I believe previously held the National. And that Anaheim show was phenomenal in that there had every single sports card dealer table all in a room. of like tens of tables in each row, and it was just all single file rows of different dealers, extremely organized, enough space for everyone, and that was just phenomenal. And this third show was back in the slightly smaller Ontario Convention Center. Overall, it was a good show, probably still one of the best shows in the country. The red-eye flights out of Ontario are a little bit grueling, and it's a big travel commitment for a guy like me who's based in the East Coast, but I can't really dog the show at all. And really, it's a very interesting climate if you're buying and selling sports cards right now.
Do they
And
still
again,
have?
fully responding as a buyer and seller.
Is there still a liquidation center at the show?
There was, and he had a long list of appointments, so I was not able to have a meet. Oh, also, I will say that just anecdotally, there were a ton of TCG and One Piece collectors in the show. I want to say half of the Beckett RCR line was people that were trying for black labels in their One Piece cards, which is definitely a trial and tribulations itself that can definitely be lucrative, but that it's just something that I don't know about.
I have a lot of love in my heart for the TCG guys who love the black label Beckett. I feel like that's just like a great little sub niche world out there in the hobby.
It's very swaggy.
Yeah, it's a lot of clout chasers. I feel like, not that we aren't all in our own way clout chasing out here.
Yeah, cloud chasing for our own lives.
Yeah,
Everyone wants the best collection, and we like enjoy sharing it to others, not out of braggadociousness, but in showing what some people can look but not touch.
well, tell me what you Beckett RCR'd at the show.
So I Beckett RCR'd 4 cards, and 3 came back PSA 9s. Sorry, well, that was a confusing statement.
I Beckett RCR'd 4 cards and 3 came back PSA 9s. Yeah, I'm pretty
No,
surprised.
I was confused because I have 3 came back Beckett 9.5s, and I was confused because I'm looking down and I see I have my PSA baggies in order to like kind of protect the seal, and that's why I immediately thought PSA 9s, even though 2 of these were previously PSA 9. No, one was previously a PSA 9 right before I submitted it. But anyways, no, I mean, I guess for people that I'm sure everyone that's listening is well familiar with Beckett RCR, but given that it's really only at 2 different shows a year in both the Dallas Card Show and Burbank, I think there's some explaining as to why to use it. And the 3 cards I have here are a Shohei Ohtani Topps Chrome update. The light is not doing me any favors, but this is a refractor out of 250 from Topps Chrome update. A Ronald Acuna Jr. Bowman's Best 2018 Gold Auto out of 50.
Oh, that's clean.
And a Topps Finest Anthony Volpe True Orange Auto to 25.
Nice. Those are some nice. So all 3 of those got 9.5s on the RCR.
Yeah, and my rationale for doing it is RCR is, I believe, $20 each and $5 for the subgrade. That sounds right. Plus 20, plus 20, plus 25. Yeah, I think that's it. Something like that. Anyway, yeah, no, I think it's $20 for each RCR and then an extra $5 for a subgrade. And the normal Beckett submission that I use is $40 for a 1-month turnaround. And these are all cards that, in my opinion, weren't clean enough to get a PSA 10, but also borderline in the case of getting a Beckett, PSA 9. Like I knew with the Volpe, in my opinion, again, because I'm not a professional, this card has never been graded, but the print lines were a little bit too strong. And I'm thinking, okay, everything else about this card looks clean, but I think the print lines will hinder it from gemming at PSA. So maybe this is a Surface 9 subgrade and everything else is gem mint, and I can squeeze by and I get the 9.5. Cards and really everything in life, but especially cards, it's again, you're going to use the chemistry equilibrium, but it's a equilibrium between time and money, or in some cases, time and opportunity, mostly time and opportunity, but time and money. And I'd rather spend the extra $25 just to get another shot at like subbing it to Beckett rather than sending it to Beckett, waiting a month, and then using that as like a shot from the 3-point line in order to see if it's gemming. I'd rather just spend the $25, know immediately the fate of this card, so then I can then continue to work it. And if I spend the extra $40, I have a 95 to 97% certainty that these are going to come back the grade that I sent them out in.
When you RCR card max, what percentage of the time do those cards end up moving before you get them encapsulated? Or they almost always end up getting
Um,
encapsulated before selling?
it's not too high. It's like 15-20%. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not 0. Um, and I mean, usually the negotiation is pretty easy or whatever. I pretty much value it the same as like a min gem, because you never know those upgrades, and that's usually how it goes with Beckett RCR.
Mhm.
But I at least at the Dallas Card Show, I want to say in September, I gemmed my Paolo Banchero photogenic gold autograph out of 10, and that was a Beckett 9.5 RCR, and I immediately sold it at that same show for a few $100 profit, and that was just nice and easy.
Yeah, I feel like that makes sense. When you can get the easy profit on a card when it's RCR, you
When it
just hop
makes
right
sense and it's
into it.
easy profit, then that's part of the name of the game.
Yeah. Take cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, throwback. But Max, I think I got a sense, I like to live vicariously through your card show adventures. I will be back to going to card shows at some point. I will be going Memorial Day weekend to the Shipshawana show, and I will definitely be going to the National. Somehow,
Nice. 2 shows a year.
well, the Chicago Spectacular, and this is a huge gripe I have, slight refractor rant here. But they throw the Chicago Spectacular on St. Patrick's Day weekend, which is notoriously a massive weekend for drinking alcohol in Chicago, where Rosemont is a solid 40 minutes away, which is not going to happen if I'm drinking beers by the river during the day. So, unfortunately, probably not going to be going to that. Maybe I'll go to Sunday if I'm feeling up for it, but
Yeah,
that's me
breaking
being
news,
kind
Tommy drinks.
of no comment. Well, Max, I've been kind of excited. I've ripped a little bit of the new, aka 2024 Topps Flagship Series 1. Have you seen any cool ones out in the wild since it's been released a couple weeks ago?
Honestly, no.
So you're not seeing those cards aren't showing up yet.
Those 2024 Topps cards are not really showing up.
Well, I
Yeah.
had a pretty sick box. I opened one hobby box from Elite Sports Cards, and I pulled a Mojo Auto, which was out of 139 of Andrew Abbott, who also has a rookie Gold Cup, which is pretty sick.
Mhm.
So I'm hyped about the auto pull from the Mojo pack. And I also pulled in one single pack. And I've been hearing boxes of this where you only get like one numbered card, maybe. In one pack of my hobby box, I pulled three numbered cards: a Jazz Chisholm Gold out of 2024, a random Guardians guy black flagship out of 73 or 74 this year, and then a Shohei Ohtani black 35th anniversary red game used relic out of 199, all in the same pack. And I've been hearing a lot of stories about 2024 tops and people ripping it, and it seems like the collation is really bad. So I would very much resist ever opening any single packs of this product, because I think that you might be in the scenario where one hobby box, one of the packs has all the hits in it. And then you end up with, a bunch of straight base packs, which I've been seeing the case in most of the cases. So I was hyped to pull four numbered cards in one hobby box. Feel like that's pretty momentous for me in my ripping times. But I like the 89. I mean, 1989 tops is a pretty classic design in my opinion. I kind of love what the Mojos look like. The 35th anniversaries are looking nice. None of the inserts are really popping out to me, Max. I know that one of the big things that we talked about last week, or not last week, whatever, the last episode of Young Old Heads, was the fact that they did that first card thing where there's like a first card emblem and it's a 101. It's like technically the first printed card, I guess, of the base card. Apparently, they just forgot to foil the front of all those cards. So make sure to check the back of your base cards, in case you might have one of these 101s that aren't really 101s. Any other thoughts, Max, on the series one? I have a couple other cards sets or like inserts that I think are kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really know. Guess I do like the technicality of the first printed, and I think that can be a fun nuance for collectors. But and how it was executed, it definitely is going to lead to more being thrown in the trash can than there are more thrown into binders and auction sites. And that's just the sad truth of it. This reminds me of, I want to say it was 2022 or 2021. I think it was 2021 Top Series 1, where they made the Platinum 1 of 1 and the 70th anniversary Platinum the exact same, when the Platinum 1 of 1 was intended to have a Platinum parallel in addition to a foil front. and I believe they corrected that for Series 2, but they did not leave that for Series 1. And it really just questions why there's these random one of not random, but purposeless one of ones that just look identical to the out of 70s. So big misfoiling and bad execution by Tops. I know I've been a loud vocal supporter of gimmick parallels and Halloween fractors and frozen factors and taco fractors, at least for all of 2023. I am reneging that stance in 2024, and Easter fractors and New York Yankees fractors and chiclet fractors, they are going way too intense with the uselessness and futility of these parallels to the extent where it's disrespecting the traditionalness of it. Like before, okay, there was like one or two silly fun parallels before, but now this is just making it more and more a world where the first Bowman card is more important and the rookie card is meaningless.
Well, Max, you say you're against gimmick parallels or whatever, random parallels, but I've been seeing you tweeting and getting in fights with people because you're such a big fan of these Kevin Hart random ass Philly parallels. So explain yourself there.
No, I am a fan of the Kevin Hart Phillies parallels and some of the other celebrity influencer gimmicks that are on baseball cards. And I think that's an interesting way to connect and really give a hat tip to people that are very diehard in cards or just know Michael Rubin, but whatever. I'm neither. But but I do think the more different types of ways that you can connect to a collector without making a parallel of literally every single holiday, the better that you can make the collecting experience for everyone, as long as you don't disrespect the card itself.
The one other parallel that is new this year that I'm pretty hyped about, or at least seems to be cool, is the 35th anniversary quote unquote real ones parallel that's numbered out of the year that it is the 35th anniversary of. So in this case, 89 for 1989. They're like vintage, they're basically vintage stock parallels of the 35th anniversary of the card stock used at the time, which I feel like adds to the collecting experience more so than like Kevin Hart parallels do, because really, like, who gives a fuck about that?
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. I don't think anyone really cares about the Kevin Hart type of parallels,
Well, speaking of
but I do.
but Max does.
Sure.
So quality. All right. Speaking of quality assurance, though, Max, there's been some rumblings of Panini fucking up once again on missing a ton of autos in Prism basketball. I've been hearing stories of whole hobby boxes being ripped without finding autos. Seems like they might have just forgotten the autos in a lot of different boxes. So, did you hear any rumblings of this at any of the shows you were at or online at all?
None really at shows, but I've seen a lot of rumblings online of seeing people have legitimately missing hits. Some people are saying, "Oh, but the color parallels will bail you out," when it's, dude, if this is a $800 box or however expensive that specific configuration was, expensive box. This is not a joke. And sure, I don't know if a Scoot Henderson Colorado would fix that anyway, but it still is telling to the point where this might be able to be used and abused by two Panini reps, and that's not cool. Even though Panini isn't necessarily for the hobby, don't use and abuse them. And yeah, moment that is bad for the hobby. In case you needed my spelling out.
And I still don't think we've even heard any follow-ups to this story of all these backdoor 101s that popped up a few months ago. That's been kind of swept under the rug, right?
Yeah, that was kind of swept under the rug.
Classic big hobby move right there. But one set that I'm excited about that was announced this week, Max, is that they're making Live Golf, Prism Golf. John Rahm, who I've ranted about a few times now on this podcast, is finally getting his rookie card. So I'm hyped about that. I know you don't really care, but Prism Golf, I will be ripping and be hyped about. It might be my version of Jason Dardick's WNBA Prism. Mike, just go all in on Live Golf Prism, Max, and you're just going to have to listen to me talk about it.
No, I'm a fan of more Prism Gold parallels. I'm a fan of color blasts and all that fun stuff. So I will be in support of you ripping your cute little two blasters.
Oh, well, thank you. Maybe I'll splurge and get a hobby if it's not too expensive.
No, you won't.
Max, do you think that it's good for the hobby that CJ Stroud and Wemby have exclusives with Topps for autographs?
No, I don't think it's good for the hobby. I think that I don't want to be too critical, but Fanatics has definitely taken a very interesting approach in trying to squeeze Panini. And I remember hearing the rumblings that Fanatics might buy out Panini, and that Panini said, no, we're not going to be bought out anymore, and all this other cute little fun stuff. And I think Fanatics has really taken the vertical approach and trying to, again, use the same. I think Topps and Panini always use the same printing factory, and I think that was before Fanatics even acquired them. But I think Fanatics like bought the printing company or something like that. Could just be me yapping, as the kids would say. But yeah, Fanatics owning the printing company. Fanatics, of course, now trying to take the one calling card that they're going to get anyway, which is the NFL and NBA licenses, and just take the superstars from that and get the exclusive autograph rights. It's just a cruel way for, I mean, as collectors or speculators, whatever label you may choose, being deprived of really the top players in the product not having licensed autograph rookie cards,
Yeah.
and not seeing Wembanyama in a Spurs uniform with his name on the card. It's a deprivation. I don't think it's groundbreaking. I've said it's mid overall. It's not hugely amazing. Obviously, it's not hugely amazing, but it's not hugely killer either. And that they still have rookie card autographs regardless. But even you can see, I think in the Panini Next Day autos, Stroud's one of his only licensed, Houston Texans autographs. It's a card that's through the roof because of just he does not have many Texans autographs. And that is not good for the hobby.
No, I agree. I just think Ruben's being petty as fuck, and like it's like, dude, go back to making Allen and Ginter autos of yourself, and like let the hobby's not going to 10x without being able to have cool rookie autographs of the best players. So, you can say fuck it for the next 2 years, but the next 2 years might fuck you in the long run.
Yeah.
Well, Max, the last thing we need to talk about before we get to the ending of the podcast, which isn't going to be too much different than what people are used to, is Hobby Rip Night. I think it was Saturday night. Ruben basically cashes out to send a bunch of athletes to a bunch of card shops around the country for a little gathering at each shop. It seems like a pretty cool thing. It definitely gets buzz. I think like Bleacher, all the sports news outlets report on it. Brady comes out. Kevin Durant was even at one, which is interesting considering he's not associated with Fanatics as far as I know. Steve Aoki, I got in some heat because some people were defending Steve Aoki when I said he was the worst Hobby Rip Night guest that I saw out there. You didn't. I'm guessing you don't have a Hobby Rip Night.
You got to respect that.
No, I'm not saying I don't respect him, but in terms of like Tom Brady, Kevin Durant, like Anthony Richardson showing up at Indy Card Exchange, like all these dudes that are athletes. Then you got Steve Aoki, who, can you name one Steve Aoki song, Max?
He had that Pursuit of Happiness remix in Project X.
You hear they're making a sequel to Project X.
Yeah, I did. I'm excited. That's
Well,
literally me.
That's literally Max. Well, I think it's a pretty objective take here to say that Steve Aoki, out of all those dudes, is the worst guest you could have.
Yeah, no, Steve Aoki is definitely interesting.
Yeah, and my card shop, I did get a Rip Night shirt from my card shop because Ronnie, the guy who runs the shop, said they sent me like 20 shirts. I'm not going to open the shop up that late, so he just want a shirt. So I was able to get one without actually going, which is kind of cool. But in general, this is the
Hobby
sort of
Rip Night parallels this year.
There were Hobby Rip Night. There's like a set of baseball cards that they released. There were parallels in those packs that I saw.
But there wasn't flagship parallels.
Not flagship parallels. I think they went with the like own set like strategy with this one.
That's hella lame.
Hella lame. I agree. But I do agree. I do like Hobby Rip Nights. I'm excited to keep having these happen. I think investing in real life events where you can bring friends and get them hyped about the hobby and see Tom Brady at a card shop in the news. Those are good things. They're better than some other things that we mentioned during this episode. Max, would you agree with that?
Yeah, better than sex.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get behind that, but Maxwell, on that amazing note, we're going to end this episode with a new segment, not too different from what the segment you're probably expecting. This is going to be called Deals of the Week. It can be sales, it can be buys, it can be trades, it can be anything related to exchanging money or cards for other cards. Max, do you want to lead us off with a few fun ones?
Yeah, first of all, I don't even know the price I paid for these. So, ooh, but this is a cool card on my desk, and an iconic parallel that people that know ball know. And this is a Julio Rodriguez rainbow foil out of 25 from Stadium Club. Great image, and the out of 25 rainbow foils are probably one of the more coveted collector friendly parallels from Stadium Club. Zooming in on that out of 25. So I got this for a price, not a rookie, but a cool card. Caitlin Clark, Refractor Bowman U autograph, fun card. She is killing it lately. Refractor autograph, Caitlin Clark. That is a card on my desk. Yeah, I don't know. Those are the two cards that are most present in my card mind right now.
Those are fire. I'm a huge fan of the Caitlin Clark. She's obviously a baller.
Yeah, I don't have an outright play of the week type monologue to go on either of them, but those are two cards that I think everyone who is doing cards right now should know about, both in Stadium Club being a now month, maybe 2 month ago release, as well as that Caitlin Clark is a hooper.
Well, I have a one to match you here. I ripped a box of Goodwin Champions like a month ago, and I pulled a Juju Watkins on-card auto of a freshman at USC women's basketball player who is just absolutely killing it, popping off.
Juju
She
hoops.
hoops. Yeah, she hoops. And it sold at auction from my eBay, which doesn't have a ton of clout as an eBay seller. Sold for $117. An on-card Goodwin Champions auto, ungraded raw. And
I
the
can't
guy
even count that high.
I know, pretty insane. So the last comp before I put it up for auction, so I listed it when no other versions of the card were listed, and the last comp was $50, and it went out at auction for 117. So shows that women's college basketball is kind of hot right now and very liquid, which is kind of cool to see. Haven't seen the same thing at all in the men's basketball side of things and the Bowman U and stuff. I mean, Bronny James not that good at basketball, makes his cards come down. I don't think there's really any hyped prospects for this year's draft for basketball. I know that there's a guy going to Duke next year that'll probably change that up a little bit, but it seems like all the hype in basketball is kind of focused directly on Wembanyama. So that was a fun sell I had. Very rare for me to have any sales of the week, but I did make one really fun.
I mean, after seeing March Madness on your couch last year, I definitely had to take that. I thought the women's bracket of March Madness was more interesting than the men's bracket for probably the first year ever. Then I think that partly was contributed to there being too many upsets on the men's side, and the women's side was just lots of juggernauts. And maybe that trend will continue this year, but we are pro women and pro women's sports on this podcast.
Definitely. And another trade I made was with esteemed card collector Rich Moy, who is always a friend of the podcast. But I traded. He had basically the most beat up 2002 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor Ichiro Gold Cup that's probably ever out there. Probably a PSA 1. I think it's survived a house fire or something. Rich reached out, or Rich posted about it saying he's down to trade it. I ended up trading him a nice little stack of cards for this card. He said he valued it around $100, which I think is fair because it's a 2002 Gold Refractor Ichiro Gold Cup, which I think the raws usually sell around $250, $300 if they're in halfway decent condition. But Max, I traded him a nice little lot. I traded Rich. Let's pull it up. I traded him my Shohei Ohtani black out of 199 relic that I pulled out of Series 1. Traded him an Aaron Judge purple chrome Heritage Gold Cup refractor, a Shohei Gold Cup rainbow foil parallel, your least favorite flagship parallel, and a Trey Mancini gold Topps Chrome out of 50. So a few just kind of random cool cards. Also threw in a couple other, little Yankees for my boy Rich, but was hyped about that. A super beat up Ichiro Gold Cup will be a great binder edition. So I'm super, super fired up about that. And my last deal of the week, or cards that I got in the mail, at Old Man 28. another big friend of the podcast here. He sent me the San Francisco Giants Metallica team set, which was a giveaway, I think in 2015 or 14 or I think it was 2015 for the Giants, that has all the guys on Metallica and then like 4 or 5 Giants players. They all have Metallica logo on it and then the Topps logo. They're very sick cards. The ultimate collab of a stadium giveaway with a music brand and a baseball team. There's like a Buster, Hunter Pence, Mad Bum. I think Sergio Romo, and then it's all the Metallica guys. So Max, I feel like that's the sort of shit that I love.
I'm a fan of that, and I like the stories and trades that you're just kind of wrapped up. And I think that's an interesting case where both players won the trade in that one.
Well, Max, those are my pickups of the week.
Yeah,
What
I
is
think
the
that's
state?
the situation where both people won the trade on that one.
Before we head out here, Max, what's the state of the hobby in your opinion? You've been traveling around. You're the man of the people. You're out there. You're talking to people. You hate on me for not going to card shows enough. Like, what's the vibe? Is there panic in the air? I know the market's down, obviously, since we started this podcast 2 years ago. Like, none of these prices are really staying the same, but there's definitely a lot of people that have been weeded out. There's still a lot of real ones collecting. What's been going on? What do you think?
I think people have progressively perfected their niches from a collecting and buying and selling standpoint, and that the more items that exist in the common denominator, the quicker something flies. And I'm saying this from a buying and selling perspective. From a collecting standpoint, I think it's bittersweet in that I think the new available product is both has so many options, while um, in a seeming contradiction is also seems more dismal and selective because there's so much abundance. The hobby is healthy. The hobby is alive. Shows have packed turnouts, and that's with kids, that's with collectors, that's with evil, greedy buyers and flippers. There's people that want to pay a premium for cards, but they aren't really acting as rashly, and that's been the case for the past 2 years. Um, Niche, and I hope they know this won't be niche for long, but sports like college sports for men and women, women's basketball and Bowman U, PMGs for maybe not the most licensed, non-sport, whatever, Marvel, whatever you think of, Bob. Disney is popping. I know Leaf was something we didn't talk about. Leaf recently did a Steamboat Willie set, and the cards look really nice at it, to kind of either capitalize or poke fun of both for Steamboat Willie now losing its copyright due to how long it's been a thing. I know that was very inarticulate, but now Disney does not have exclusive rights to it. Yeah, lots of focus on Prism. My really one comment is that baseball isn't as hot as it was this time a year ago, but baseball was picking up quickly with Spencer Jones and others. And I'm excited for what the next year will have in hold.
Who's the most in demand baseball player right now?
No one. That's
No one.
honestly, that's just me being blunt. Like, no one's like, wow, you have that baseball player in your case. It's like, no one, man.
I feel like that's the biggest thing. And I was explaining this to a friend who doesn't collect cards, but they were like, "Oh, who are you looking to get in 2024 Topps?" And I'm like, well, like a year ago, it would have been really hyped to pull an Ellie De La Cruz rookie card. But Fanatics now does. I was explaining to him how Fanatics now holds out on rookie cards to try to build up more hype for future products. But I'm like, they just missed the boat on the hype there, because now everyone just kind of expects Ellie De La Cruz to kind of just be like an average, semi above average player. He's going to be a professional
Yeah,
baseball
like,
player
I
for a
mean, I
long
think
time.
there's enthusiasm for Jason Dominguez and Elliot Cruz, but no one's really asking for his cards. I mean, Caminero is someone who's been frequently asked about, but again, prospecting. But I'd probably say Caminero is the most asked.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited for baseball season personally, just as a baseball fan. So I will be continuing to buy cards, obviously. Basketball, it seems like Wemby's kind of controlling the market, right, Max? Am I still right on that?
Yes, but no one's really asking for him. Basketball is always a little lukewarm. Football is always hot, hot, hot.
Hot, hot, hot. Well, we'll see you guys next week on Wednesdays. We will be trying to keep it as consistent as possible on Wednesday releases here. Today we're recording Monday on February 26th. So if some crazy news happens in the next couple days, don't blame us. Max, do you have any parting words here for our listeners?
This is an R-rated podcast for vulgarity, explicit language, and refractors.